towards you only. So Kirsten, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly to the Kasama audience?
Sure, sure. I'm part of the Kasama community, and as a technical advisor and a health and wellness advisor, I was one of the first board certified reproductive acupuncturists in North America and treated over 10,000 infertile couples during that time. Now we're building the first precision medicine platform for women's health and fertility. So I'm super excited because I just like, a lot of us in the Kasama community really long to have more community of successful people who are looking for deeper and more meaningful connections. And how do we leverage the connections that we have to actually make larger social impact? So when Sherry was telling me about Kasama, I was super excited about it because I was like, oh, this is exactly what I've been dreaming about. So
Fantastic, fantastic. I think, yeah, the problem is a lot of times people get together and talk about all the amazing stuff that they're going to do, and there's no tangible output. Like
yeah.
you go away feeling good, but have you really done something that, I was listening to some Steve Jobs quote. It's like a good idea is great, but it's actually craftsmanship and execution that deliver great product. So
Yes.
fantastic. So I will start out with asking you what issues that are hitting you and hitting you the hardest are on your at the top of your I'm worried about list.
Hmm. Well, actually, global warming is a big concern for me. Because my body is very sensitive to temperature. So that's a big problem. But also I think, I mean, I do a live show every single day for my fertility community, and there can be 2 to 5,000 people on that call a day. And so I really, really get to hear in depth sort of a lot of what's bothering a large group of people in a particular segment. And what is most concerning to me is how little information both men and women have about how their bodies work and how they can impact their health on their own. In addition, in a complement with their doctor. I'm not saying like we should not go to the doctor, but we have so much opportunity that we could be teaching people about how to care for their bodies, how to read the signals that our body is not excited about the way that we're caring about it. And particularly for women, I think the messages about what it means to be healthy is really scary to me because we see that translating to lower and lower fertility. But women will tell me, but I'm super healthy. I'm a triathlete. I'm a vegan. My BMI is 19. And on paper, on Instagram, they look perfect. And then, they're infertile for a lot of underlying factors. So, my biggest concerns are about how do we put more power into the hands of both men and women around their health?
Great, great. And do you feel like there's what will enable that to happen? Like what do you think are the types of solutions that need to happen to make people more aware of the ways that they can be healthier?
I mean, what we are doing is, fairly grassroots effort, but the technology that we're building will be able to, our mission is to democratize access to fertility, right? A study came out that said that less than 3% of couples could afford fertility. And I thought, well, I'm actually part of that problem. It was really expensive to come to see me in my clinic, but by building technology that will help a segment of the population that is actually quite incentivized. I don't want to say desperate, very incentivized to make behavior change. My hope is that the way we do it at my company is to then use that technology to start to quantify what the real problem looks like and quantify the impact of the intervention so that we can actually show like we have a lot more power around people's health if we can use technology to leverage that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And then, what I'm thinking about is here you have something you're concerned about, you've turned it into a career, and then you've actually realized that, what you're offering may be a little exclusive from a financial standpoint, and you're trying to spread it out to the world. And I think, you're hitting on the key elements on how meaningful purpose is achieved. You have to have people who are motivated, and able to deliver something of value to others, and you're building you have a community built. And I think that,
Building.
you're building a community, and I think that's really important. I think that's what Kasama is really about. um, what do you think are the most important factors in trying to build a community?
That's actually a really good question. I honestly, I think that let me rephrase that. I think the factors that are most important for building community, and I am in no way someone who is very skilled at building very large communities, but I think first of all, you need a shared problem. That's, you need a villain. So a shared problem, and then a leader, right? Someone to sort of galvanize the community to come together in a meaningful way. And then you need agents, right? You need people who in that community, I think this is, as we tie it back to Kasama, this is hopefully what we'll be building is like in my community, my followers love me. They come to my show every single day. They ask a lot of questions. They're very appreciative. They learn from it and they benefit from it. What our community doesn't do is how do we galvanize that huge community of people to actually take action and make a difference societally? And this is one of the things that I hope to learn just from my experience with Kasama and through sort of the hive mindset of all of the brilliant and creative people who are part of the organization already, like yourself.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And I think, you hit it on the head. It's you have that first part, and I think the next step is trying to create spaces and structure, or some kind of organization around which those type of people can get together to make their brains work, right?
I think that like, yes, structure and space, but then I think that the missing piece that I'm most curious about, and I think that a lot of people struggle with this, is like, how do you actually get people to step out of their own pain and into service, right? Whatever the quote unquote problem is that we're solving, it's very easy to become incredibly myopic and
Yes.
be overwhelmed by your own trouble, whatever that or concern. How do we how do we help people to sort of have this realization that the real power around whatever problem that you're solving comes from action, personal action, not only my action, but as a community's action, that's where you can actually, like I always say, I hate needless suffering. I don't know how to get water to thirsty people. I don't know how to feed people. But there are certain areas, especially around the work that I do, that I'm like infertility largely is needless suffering. Like at least 70% of people can have significant improvements. And so, but even personally, right? People can end a lot of their suffering by getting into action. And it's very therapeutic as well because it feels good and it makes us produce all the chemicals and hormones that actually feed us and nourish our bodies and help our bodies to heal.
Wow, that's amazing, because I think when working with Sherry on Kasama and some of the programs that we're developing, it all has to start from yourself first, right? Because you can get a bunch of people if they are not willing to kind of look at themselves and figure out what they need to do to kind of get out of their their I don't know,
Their
shell,
bubble. Yeah,
their
or
bubble,
shell.
their bubble. You can't really create meaningful impact, because you're so closed off that everything, this society today, with all the short bursts of information and commenting on social media, it's like you're immediately pigeonholed by the first 5 words you say into a bubble. And so we
By
need to
your
break.
hook.
Yeah, exactly, we got to break down the bubbles. And so I think, how did you first get introduced or connected to Kasama?
I've been friends with Sherry through the networking of SKU and just like the women's health, um, the women's entrepreneur circles in Austin.
And what about Kasama? I think you touched upon this earlier, resonated with you so much that you decided to kind of join into the community.
I think, like I mentioned before, this longing for more meaningful connections. For like my children just went off to college for the first time, and I was a single mom the whole time. For the first time, I have a lot more time on my hands. And because the work that we're doing at my work, we're becoming more and more efficient, and I'm getting more and more focused around the work that I'm doing there. I have room to really start growing more relationships, more community-based relationships, not just my neighbors, but actually intentional communities. So as Sherry was telling me about what she was thinking about building, I was like, how can I help? I just got so excited because I'm excited about the idea of, just getting really smart people in the room, uh, coming together. I mean, I was at Sherry's house the other day for a little working dinner, and the conversation that we had at the table, it was just over dinner, and it was not an intentional conversation. We're just talking about the circles for Kasama, and the comments of the members of the dinner were mind blowing. Like I felt like I would have paid $5,000 for the experience of having that conversation, and I want more of that.
That's amazing because I think there's an alchemy that happens when you bring the right people together and you just give them a chance to start talking about it, anything, and something happens and people start offering stuff. And I think it comes down to like getting the right people in the right room. You know what I mean? Um,
We talked a lot also about trust, action and trust. And I think that that is also, it's like, it's getting the right people in the room and trusting that the alchemy will unfold, because we talked a lot about how much do we force the structure and how much do we trust and allow the structure. But like if it's like, if our goal is to get to 100x of whatever, 100 of something. Well, is it possible that if we didn't set that goal that we would have gotten to 1,000? And so that whole idea, this is part of the part was so exciting to me, like, because as someone who is a very structured person, the idea of just like and Sherry too, letting it be like in some ways less structured and allow for evolution to happen is also very interesting, to allow those things to happen in concert.
that's amazing because I think sometimes structure limits, sometimes structure helps, and
Yes,
no,
yes. It's like the
yeah,
gas and the brake, right?
exactly. And you guys need to know when to push and when to break.
Just like
Um,
Kenny, what Kenny Rogers, Kenny Loggins, you got to know when, don't
oh
put that in there when I'm singing.
no, but know when to fold them and know when
Yeah.
to river. I
Walk
can't.
away,
Yeah, walk away. That's it. That's
know
it.
when to run. I live in Texas, so
Uh, yeah, no, one of the great things that I miss is that unfortunately I'm in Atlanta, not Austin, so I don't get to jump into these things that these, brunches and get-togethers
Mm.
and dinners. Um, in a in a perfect world, and I think you basically hit all my questions before I even got there. So you're
Good. Well, we're
very
done.
anticipatory. Um, in a perfect world, what would you like to see happen with Kasama for you?
Mm. I think that the long game for Kasama is something that starts out small and starts to slowly, actually, I don't think that velocity initially is on our side, that we take a year to sort of explore the community, the circles, the physical experience, and really frame it in a way that we start to really fall in love with the experience, and then start to expand those opportunities for community beyond ourselves, larger and larger circles. And that the work that they're doing with you, I think that one of the pieces is really important is how, like from that conversation at dinner, um, how do we then repurpose that content in ways that's meaningful for people who are not part of the Kasama community, but actually is not just information, but then also leaves other people inspired to take action? Right? Because often if you're on Instagram or TikTok, you'll see something like, that was amazing, swipe. That was amazing. That was swipe. But actually that we're creating content that is actually so inspirational and compelling that people want to then somehow, that we build some sort of Kasama communities that are not the more expensive ones, that are sort of, because I'm all about, how do we democratize access to everything. And so, that would be the larger thing, is like, from the circles, we're actually making a significant impact, but at the same time, we're building opportunities for people to create Kasama communities all over the world.
That's great. I think it's translating, being able to translate that swipe into, like, right now, the swipe is the end. Do you know what I mean? And it should be just the
Yes.
beginning.
I
Um,
have some ideas on how we can do that too.
fantastic. I'm all ears. Um, the last question I wanted to ask was, like you mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of these communities that are around, around conscious capitalism, people trying to look towards a meaningful impact and purpose to society. How is Kasama different and unique from those areas, and why, you're so interested in Kasama?
Well, I'm part of the conscious capitalism movement, but I think that the difference between that one in particular, and I think that in some ways, Soho House was the original template for this. I mean, there's many, many others, but the missing piece is around the goal. And I think that there really aren't very many communities that I'm aware of, and they probably exist. I'm just not, looped into all of them, that are so focused on helping people to move outside of themselves and into their communities with impact.
Yeah, exactly. What's the funnest thing that's happened to you since you've joined Kasama?
Oh boy. Well, probably the people, to be honest with you, because just the conversations. I mean, I'm a linguist. I love languages. I love conversation. Um, so I think that having access to sort of a whole new crop of friends and thinkers and innovators, and hearing the kinds of, experiences and work that people are doing, and also I think something that's very exciting is to see, maybe I felt like I was like a rare thing, that I wanted this kind of community, right? That maybe I was the only person who like cared about, doing this. And then to see so many people had the exact same longings. And that actually felt really great to me, like, oh, wow, there's a lot of amazing people who want this too. That means we can actually pull these people together in a really inspirational and powerful way and impactful way.
Fantastic. I am going to